Most people think the SUV was invented somewhere in the 1990s. They are wrong. By about 60 years. The vehicles on this list were built before highways existed, before power steering existed, before anyone even used the word SUV. These were machines built for one reason only: to go anywhere, carry anything, and never stop working no matter what you threw at them. 7 vehicles. 7 different manufacturers. All built between 1935 and 1949. And every single modern SUV you see on the road today, every Range Rover, every Tahoe, every Land Cruiser, traces its DNA directly back to one of these machines. Today we are going through all 7 of them. What made each one different? What made each one matter? And why these forgotten workhorses deserve far more respect than they ever received. This is where the SUV story actually begins. Let's get into it. Number 7. The Studebaker Utility Wagon. Studebaker had been building vehicles since the horse-drawn carriage era. By 1949, they had nearly a century of manufacturing experience behind every decision they made. And when they built the utility wagon, that experience showed in ways that separated it immediately from everything else in the market. Studebaker approached this vehicle differently from the beginning. Where most manufacturers of this era were focused purely on capability and load carrying, Studebaker looked at the whole picture. A working vehicle that actually considered the person operating it every single day. That thinking produced something genuinely different. The body was clean and more carefully proportioned than most utility wagons of its time. Still upright and boxy in the way the era demanded, but with smoother transitions and better overall proportions than the purely functional designs coming from competitors. Studebaker had genuine design talent, and even on a working utility vehicle, that talent was visible. The structure was full steel throughout, wide and planted with serious ground clearance underneath. Built to handle loaded conditions on unpaved roads without the body flexing or the chassis losing confidence. Studebaker built their vehicles to last, and the utility wagon was no exception to that standard. Under the hood sat a straight 6-cylinder engine displacing 170 cubic inches and producing around 85 horsepower. Smooth and refined in a way that working vehicle engines of this era rarely were. Studebaker engineering prioritized smoothness and longevity together. The result was a powertrain that felt more composed than most competitors while still delivering the reliable low-end pulling power that utility work demanded every single day. The cargo configuration was practical and well thought out. Real usable space. Properly engineered load-carrying ability. The kind of layout that showed someone had actually thought about how this vehicle would be used in real working conditions rather than just how it would look in a brochure. And the refinement inside the cab was noticeably better than most alternatives at this price point. Not luxurious. Nobody was calling a 1949 utility wagon luxurious. But more considered. More comfortable for the driver spending long days behind the wheel across difficult terrain. This specific model ran from 1949 to 1952. 3 years of production before Studebaker evolved the lineup into their next generation of vehicles. Studebaker never achieved the sales volumes of Chevrolet or Ford, but the buyers who chose them understood exactly what they were getting. Better engineering. More careful construction. A vehicle built by people who took genuine pride in the quality of what they produced. The 1949 Studebaker utility wagon was not the most famous vehicle of its era. It was not the most capable. It was not the cheapest. It was simply one of the most carefully built working vehicles of its time. And the people who depended on it every single day knew exactly what that was worth. Number 6. The Crosley Station Wagon. Everything about this vehicle goes against what you expect from a 1940s utility wagon. It was small. Incredibly small. At a time when American automotive thinking was moving toward bigger and heavier and more powerful, Crosley went in the complete opposite direction. And they had very good reasons for doing exactly that. Crosley was not a traditional automaker. They came from consumer electronics and appliances. When they entered the automotive space, they brought that same thinking with them. Efficiency. Simplicity. Accessibility. Build something that ordinary people can actually afford to buy and afford to run. That philosophy produced something the American market had never really seen before. The station wagon sat on a wheelbase of just 80 inches. To put that in perspective, it was dramatically smaller than everything else on the road in 1947. The overall length was compact enough to park almost anywhere. The weight was so low that fuel consumption was almost laughably small compared to its competitors. Under the hood was a 26 cubic inch four-cylinder engine. 26 cubic inches. Producing around 26 horsepower. Those numbers sound almost too small to be real. But this engine was genuinely innovative. The early Cobra unit used a copper-brazed steel construction that was lightweight and technically advanced for its time. Later models switched to the more conventional cast-iron Ciba engine after some durability concerns with the original design. Simple. Easy to maintain. Inexpensive to repair. The body was steel construction with clean, straight lines. Upright and boxy in the way everything from this era was. But scaled down to a size that made it genuinely practical for tight spaces and narrow roads. The wagon configuration gave it rail cargo carrying ability despite the compact dimensions. Fuel economy from this vehicle was extraordinary for 1947. While full-size wagons and trucks were consuming fuel at rates that made long-distance running expensive, the Crosley was returning figures that made ownership genuinely affordable for working-class families who needed basic, reliable transportation. That was the entire point. Crosley was not competing with Chevrolet or Dodge for farmers and industrial users. They were competing for the family that needed a second vehicle. The small-town buyer. The urban household that needed something practical and affordable rather than something powerful and impressive. This specific model ran from 1947 to 1952. 5 years of production before Crosley exited the automobile business entirely. The company never cracked the mainstream market the way they hoped. But what they built during those 5 years was genuinely ahead of its thinking. Small, efficient, practical, affordable transportation at a time when American automotive culture was moving in exactly the opposite direction. The Crosley station wagon was not the most capable vehicle of its era. It was never trying to be. It was trying to be the most sensible, the most accessible, the most honest vehicle for the buyer who just needed something that worked without breaking the bank. On those terms, it delivered completely. Number 5. The Willys Jeep Truck. There is a short list of vehicles that genuinely earned their reputation rather than simply inheriting it from marketing. The Willys Jeep Truck is on that list. And it earned its place in a way that almost no other vehicle from this era can match. Willys already had the most proven off-road DNA in existence by 1947. The military Jeep had already demonstrated what this platform could handle. Willys took that foundation and stretched it. Literally. A longer wheelbase. A proper cargo bed. A full truck layout built on the same bones that had already proven themselves in the most extreme conditions on Earth. The body was simple and honest. Flat hood. Upright cab. Wide open cargo bed behind. No wasted material. No unnecessary complexity. Every dimension of this truck was calculated around one purpose. Carrying heavy loads across terrain that had no right to be driven on. Under the hood sat the 134 cubic inch four-cylinder Go-Devil engine. The same engine already battle-tested through years of military service. 60 horsepower from a small displacement four-cylinder sounds completely inadequate on paper. In practice, it was a different story entirely. This engine produced its torque low in the rev range exactly where a working truck needs it most. Pulling out of mud. Climbing steep grades. Moving heavy loads from a dead stop. The Go-Devil handled all of it with complete confidence. The four-wheel drive system was mechanical and straightforward. Shift it in and point the truck at whatever was in front of you. Rocky creek beds. Steep muddy hillsides. Deep rutted farm tracks. The Willys Jeep truck went places that full-size trucks from other manufacturers simply refused to go. And that compact size was a genuine advantage. Narrow enough to navigate tight farm tracks and forest paths. Short enough to turn around in spaces that longer trucks could not manage. Big enough to carry a serious working load. That balance was almost impossible to find in 1947. Willys found it. Farmers ran these trucks as their primary working vehicle for decades. Ranchers used them daily across terrain with no roads. Rural communities in remote areas depended on them completely because nothing else could reach where they needed to go. This exact model ran from 1947 all the way to 1965. 18 years of continuous production with the same fundamental character intact throughout. Because when you build something that works this well for the people who need it most, there is very little pressure to change it. The Willys Jeep truck was never glamorous. It was never comfortable in the way luxury buyers expected. It was built for one thing only: to get the job done no matter what stood in the way. It never failed at that. Not once. Number 4. The International Harvester KB Series Wagon. Most people have never heard of this one. That is exactly the problem. Because what International Harvester built in 1947 was one of the most capable and purposeful utility wagons ever put into production. It just never got the credit it deserved. International Harvester was not a car company. That is the first thing to understand. They built farm equipment, industrial machinery, heavy working vehicles for people who depended on their tools to survive. When they decided to build a wagon, they approached it exactly the same way. Not from a styling department, from an engineering floor. The KB series was built on a full truck chassis, heavy and wide, sitting high off the ground with serious ground clearance underneath. The stance was wide and planted, flat hood, upright body, no curves, no design flourishes. Every panel on this vehicle existed for a reason, and that reason was function. Under the hood sat an inline 6-cylinder engine producing around 82 horsepower. Simple and overbuilt for the power it produced. International Harvester engineered their powertrains the same way they engineered their tractors. Built to run all day under heavy load without complaint. The kind of engine that outlasted the vehicles around it simply because it was never pushed anywhere near its actual limits. The four-wheel drive system was robust and straightforward. Mechanical components that any competent mechanic could service without specialist tools or dealership equipment. That mattered enormously to the farmers and rural workers who depended on these vehicles hundreds of miles from the nearest city. And the cargo capability of this machine was extraordinary. The load bed was massive. The towing capacity was serious. Farmers loaded these things with equipment, feed, livestock supplies, and anything else that needed moving across terrain that had no roads. The KB series handled all of it without hesitation. What made this wagon different from everything else in 1947 was the combination of genuine truck capability with an enclosed body that could carry both people and cargo together. That sounds simple. At the time, it was genuinely rare. This specific model ran from 1947 to 1951. 4 years of pure working vehicle excellence before International Harvester updated the lineup. It never chased glamour. It never competed on style. It competed on capability and dependability. And on both of those measures, it beat almost everything around it. The KB series wagon never became a household name. But the people who used it every single day knew exactly what they had. Number 3. The Dodge Power Wagon. Most vehicles from this era made promises they couldn't keep. The Power Wagon made no promises. It just performed. Every single time. In conditions that would have stopped anything else completely dead in its tracks. Dodge built this on a military truck chassis. Not inspired by military engineering. Not influenced by it. Literally taken directly from the WC series trucks that served in World War II. Dodge took that proven combat-ready platform and put it straight into civilian production. No watering down. No compromises. The same bones. The same strength. Just a new purpose. The body sat high and aggressive. Flat hood. Upright windshield. Wide stance. It looked like something that had already survived a war because essentially it had. Every line on this truck communicated one thing. Nothing is stopping me. Under the hood was the 230 cubic inch flathead 6-cylinder engine. 94 horsepower. That number sounds modest today, but the way this engine delivered its power told the real story. Low-end torque that just pulled and pulled regardless of what you pointed it at. Steep muddy hill. Deep rutted track. Heavy loaded cargo bed. The Power Wagon simply did not care. And then there was the four-wheel drive system. Fully mechanical. Completely bulletproof. A front-mounted power takeoff that could run external equipment directly from the engine. Winch included from the factory. This wasn't an option or an upgrade. It came standard, because Dodge understood exactly who was buying this vehicle and exactly what they needed it to do. Farmers used the power takeoff to run equipment in fields with no electricity for miles. Loggers used the winch to pull timber out of terrain no other vehicle could reach. Fire departments ran them. Oil companies ran them. If a job existed somewhere difficult and remote, the Power Wagon was already there. This exact model ran from 1946 all the way to 1968. 22 years. Same fundamental design. Same unstoppable character. Because nothing that came along in those 2 decades could improve on what Dodge had already built. The Power Wagon wasn't the most comfortable vehicle of its era. It wasn't trying to be. It was trying to be the toughest, the most capable, the most dependable machine you could point at an impossible situation. It succeeded completely. Number 2. The Willis Station Wagon. Before this existed, there was a clear line in the automotive world. Tough vehicles were uncomfortable. Comfortable vehicles were weak. Nobody had crossed that line yet. Willis crossed it in 1946 and never looked back. The foundation of this machine came directly from the military Jeep. The same Jeep that proved itself in the most brutal conditions imaginable. Willis took that go-anywhere unstoppable DNA and wrapped it in something civilians could actually use every single day. The body was full steel construction. That sounds standard today, but in 1946 most wagons were still built with wood panels. Actual wood. Willis eliminated that completely. Full steel meant stronger. Tougher. Far more resistant to the kind of daily punishment real working families put a vehicle through year after year. The design was tall and wide. Big flat windows on every side. Boxy and upright with zero wasted space. It looked exactly as capable as it actually was. Under the hood sat the 4-cylinder Go Devil engine. This engine already had its reputation built before this wagon even existed. Years of military service in the most extreme conditions on Earth had already proven what it could handle. Dropping it into a civilian vehicle wasn't a gamble. It was a guarantee. And the capability of this machine in real-world conditions was extraordinary. Mud tracks, rocky terrain, river crossings, steep unpaved hills. The kind of roads that destroyed regular family cars completely. The Willis handled all of it without hesitation. This specific model ran from 1946 all the way to 1965. Nearly 2 decades without major changes. Because when something works this well, there is very little reason to touch it. The Willis station wagon wasn't discounted or overlooked. It was simply ahead of everything else around it. Tough and comfortable in the same vehicle. In 1946, that wasn't expected. Willis made it the standard. Number 1. The Chevrolet Suburban Carryall. Most people think the SUV was invented sometime in the 1990s when Ford and Chevy started flooding driveways with massive family haulers. They're off by about 60 years. This is where it actually started. Chevy built the Suburban on a pure truck chassis. Not a car platform. Not something soft and compromised. A real truck foundation with a fully enclosed steel body on top. That combination sounds obvious today. In 1935, nobody was doing it. The body was tall, upright, completely boxy with flat panels and a roof that sat high above the road. It had no interest in looking pretty. It was designed to work. And that is exactly what it did. Under the hood was a straight 6-cylinder engine. Simple engineering. Proven components. The kind of powertrain that mechanics could fix on a dirt road with basic tools. No complexity. No weak points. Just reliable power that showed up every single time you needed it. And that elevated driving position. Sitting high above everything around you. That feeling of commanding the road rather than just being on it. That was something completely new in 1935. Regular cars sat low and felt small. The Suburban made you feel untouchable. Farmers ran these things into the ground and they kept coming back for more. Rural communities depended on them completely. No other vehicle could carry that much load across that kind of terrain and still be ready the next morning. From 1935 to 1940, this exact model ran unchanged. Because nothing about it needed changing. No other SUV nameplate in history has survived 90 years of continuous production. Not one. And it all traces back to this. One truck chassis. One steel body. One straight six engine. The Suburban didn't launch a model. It launched an entire industry.